Hi there. It's been a while since I've done my last video. I've been pretty busy, and more than anything else, I haven't really had a topic that I felt like I could sink my teeth into. Too often these days I find that people who start off with YouTube channels like mine get themselves caught up in the overwhelming drive to produce content. I think I may have suffered from that for a while, which is why a couple of my videos, when I look back at them now, I sort of scratch my head and wonder why I even bothered. However, today I just want to sort of reintroduce myself, give people a chance to see where I am right now in terms of my photography, and maybe a little overview of what's out there. Lately there have been a lot of big camera introductions. And with it comes the usual run of, let us say, internet trollism? Oh, I know, way too harsh. The whiners have started. When the Canon 5D Mark IV came out, they began right away. Right away, every complaint they could level at that camera because they had expected too much. Since Canon were the ones that really made DSLR video a professional thing with the 5D Mark II, I know the Nikon D90 had 720p video before Canon had any video-capable digital SLR. However, it was the 5D Mark II that really put digital SLR video on the map. It was used in professional situations. I mean, episodes of TV series were actually shot on it. So, it was a big deal. Now, all of a sudden with the Mark IV version, Canon seems to be paring back a little on the video. They haven't added any of the latest and greatest bells and whistles. Instead, they've sort of just moved it up a little bit. Now, in terms of still pictures and in autofocus and so on, the Mark IV is a big step up from the Mark III. But they don't have that little extra tweak in the video, so people are complaining. You move on to another big announcement. The latest and greatest from Olympus. The Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II. Now, what do we have there? Fast. Speed, 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 speed. Faster autofocus. Faster tracking focus. Phase detect that now works with all of their lenses. Dual image stabilization, and on and on and on. Super high frame rates, silent shutter. People are saying, wow, this is a great camera. It's tough, it's sturdy, it's right up there with the top of the line cameras in that regard. But then a lot of people look at it and say, yeah, but it's a Micro Four Thirds. With that tiny little sensor, how can they charge such outrageous prices? Again, the whining. I mean, not everybody needs a full frame sensor. But there is that faction who believe that because they think everyone needs a full-frame sensor, then obviously everyone must need a full-frame sensor. Go figure. Then we have the Panasonic GH5. The GH4 was such a well-loved camera. I mean, it was the darling of so many videographers for good reason. So they bring out the GH5. And right away the whining starts. The autofocus is not good enough. It's not reliable. It tends to hunt. Look, that's probably all true. But is it a better camera than the GH4? Yeah. So, hopefully we can all just kind of sit back and hope that Panasonic, as Panasonic, Olympus, and Fuji usually do, come out with firmware that will improve the camera and fix that problem. If not, well, do what most people do for video, manually focus. So there we have it. The latest, of course, is the Sony A9. Now the Sony A9 right now is being heaped glowing praise because it is super fast. It has frame rates that are more than competitive with the top of the line models from Canon and Nikon. It has an autofocus array that's amazing. It has totally uninterrupted viewing at frame rates of up to 20 frames per second. A lot of really great things. Now, are there complaints? Yes. The video is not quite... Come on. They have the A7S. That is the video camera. The A7R2 is also very capable at video. This camera, the A9 I mean, they were really aiming at a different market. They were aiming at the sports shooter and the wildlife shooter. And even though they still have to catch up in terms of lenses, I think in terms of the camera body, they're pretty close to being there. Anyhow, in my case, am I going to be upgrading to any of these cameras? No. I don't shoot much sports. I may be at a game sometime and shoot something, but that's about it. So very clearly, the gear I have now will handle most of my situations reasonably well. Something like this old clunker here. Now this Frankenstein was my video camera, my EP2, but I've decided that since I had two Pentax bodies, I was unfortunately into the habit of using the K5 for everything, which is the lesser spec model, which was kind of silly. You should always use your best camera, so my K3 has gone into my working bag. My K5 is now videoing this. It's now my dedicated video camera. This, which was my dedicated video camera, is now being used with some old Pentax lenses as a fun camera. The autofocus, this is an EP2, first generation. I know there was an EP1, but remember, the only difference between an EP1 and an EP2 is this little port right here. Other than that, there are maybe a couple of firmware changes, but the hardware is pretty much the same. That port allows me to use this viewfinder. Since the autofocus of this camera is not great, then now I can use it as a manual focus camera using this little viewfinder here to allow me to manually focus these lenses. I simply hit a button to enlarge my image here. There we go. And my camera is now in focus, and I can take the picture. This is fine. This will do me for a lot of fun shoots. Times when I'm not trying to catch the fastest action, but I just want to take some nice pictures and feel involved in the process of taking those pictures. So, here we have it. The camera for that. That's my advice to everybody right now. Make the best use of the gear you have. Now, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Make the best use of the gear you have. Don't get on forums complaining about why this new camera doesn't have every single thing you wanted. Okay, it's not going to do your dishes, it's not going to do your clothes, it is not going to see that you're dressed properly in the morning. It's going to take pictures. And unless you have very specific needs that require some very specific performance points, then, well, what's the problem? If you've got 12 megapixels or more, you've got enough for most of the prints that people are likely to want to make. If you're a professional, yes, you need the greatest and the best for your purposes. If I were out doing professional work and I could afford it, I would have a Nikon D810 for my big prints, and I would have a Nikon D5 or a D500 for capturing that action and doing wildlife and things like that. If I were with Canon, it would be something similar. I'd have a 5D Mark 5D was it 5D Mark III? No, 5D SR. Well, whatever, the big one. And I would have something like I don't know, a 7D for action. However, right now, Sony also offers an option. I mean, an A7R2 for those big prints, and the A9 if you're going after wildlife and action. But, if you're like me, that would be really superfluous. You really don't need that much. You need more than this, because I've never come to terms with one of these. But You don't need a Canon. A pea shooter will do. Well, I hope you liked the video. If you did, click like. If you want to see more videos, subscribe. And of course, if you think anybody might get anything from this video, be sure to share it. Bye for now.